Dr. Max Smith was one of the most renowned doctors in the city of Boston. He had been practicing medicine for over 20 years and had built a very successful private practice. He owned a beautiful home in the suburbs and drove a luxury car. Most importantly, he had a loving wife, Linda, and two wonderful daughters, Emily and Sarah. Despite his success and possessions, Max had one secret. He was an atheist. As a doctor of science, he did not believe in God or the supernatural. Everything could be explained by facts, evidence, and scientific reasoning in his view. His family knew of his beliefs, but did not share them. Linda and the girls regularly attended church each Sunday. While Max respected their faith, he did not share it. Deep down, he felt religion was a crutch for those who could not accept life's harsh realities through reason alone. As long as it did not interfere with his family life, he said nothing to discourage their worship. Things were going well for many years with this understanding between them. That all began to change one unfortunate night. Max was driving home late after finishing up some paperwork at his office. It had started to rain heavily and the roads were slick. As he rounded a corner, his car suddenly hydroplaned on the wet pavement and veered off the road. He overcorrected and ended up crashing head-on into a large tree. The impact of the collision was devastating. Max suffered multiple broken bones, a severe concussion, and critical internal bleeding. He coded in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The EMTs fought valiantly to resuscitate him, but his injuries were just too severe. By the time he arrived in the ER, it was too late. Dr. Maxwell Smith was pronounced dead at the age of 48. The news of Max's sudden passing sent shockwaves through his family, colleagues, and the entire community. He had been in perfect health and the last person anyone expected to die so young. His funeral was one of the largest the town had ever seen, a testament to just how many lives he had touched through his decades of service as a physician. Linda was understandably distraught after losing her husband and soulmate of 25 years. To make matters worse, with Max gone, there was no life insurance payout or other savings to rely on. They had lived comfortably due to his private practice, but most of their finances were tied up in that business, which died with him. Within a few months, Linda was forced to shut down and sell the practice to pay off debts. Her husband's unexpected death sent her into a deep depression. Between grieving the loss and struggling with money, she slowly withdrew from friends and isolated herself in the empty home. Emily and Sarah tried their best to help their grieving mother, but they too were teenagers dealing with their own feelings of loss. Things went from bad to worse over the next year for the Smith family. With no steady income, Linda fell behind on the mortgage. The bank foreclosed on their beautiful home, forcing them to move into a cramped apartment in the city. The girls had to transfer to new schools in a rougher neighborhood. Linda took a low-paying job as a waitress just to make ends meet. Sometimes Max would curse God in his mind, angry at the turmoil his family now faced. As an atheist, he did not truly believe an entity called God existed. Yet in his darkest moments, he found himself screaming at the universe in rage. Why had this happened? Why did his loving wife and children have to suffer so badly after his death? It just didn't seem fair. The struggles took a huge emotional toll on Linda. She grew increasingly despondent as bills piled up and debts closed in. One winter night, after a long double shift, she came home exhausted and broke down sobbing in front of her daughters. "I just don't know how we are going to make it," she wept helplessly. "We are going to lose everything." Overcome with shame, guilt, and utter hopelessness, Linda made a rash decision. She left the apartment that night and never returned. Emily and Sarah waited up all night for her in vain. The next morning, they received a call from the police. Their mother's body had been found in a nearby river, an apparent suicide. With that horrific phone call, the girls lost not only their mother, but the last parent they had in this world. Now truly orphans at 17 and 15, they faced an uncertain future alone. Child Services stepped in and placed them in a group home temporarily while long-term arrangements were made. The next few months were an absolute living nightmare for Emily and Sarah. Bounced between different foster homes, the trauma of losing both parents on top of constant upheaval took a devastating toll. Emily withdrew into herself, barely talking to anyone. Sarah acted out with rage, getting into fights at school. They clung to each other as their only remaining family, afraid to get close to anyone else they might lose. As for Max, the news of his wife taking her own life pushed him over the edge. His anger and bitterness towards God or fate or the universe had reached a boiling point. If there was a God, how could he let such cruelty and suffering be inflicted on his innocent family? It made no sense and fueled Max's atheism even more. Some nights he found himself yelling at the sky, cursing any god that may exist for destroying his family and ruining his daughters' lives. Time passed in a blur of pain. Another few unstable months went by as the girls struggled to find stability in the foster system. At their lowest point, Emily came down with pneumonia from the stress of it all. Too malnourished and grief-stricken, her body could not fight off the infection. After a week in the hospital, she followed her parents to the grave at only 17 years old. The news of Emily's death completely shattered Sarah. She had nothing left to live for now except revenge on a cruel world that had taken everything from her. In a moment of blind rage and depression, the sorrow-filled teenager grabbed some pills from the foster home's medicine cabinet and washed them down with alcohol. Her suicide note simply read, "If I can't be with my family, then I don't want to be here anymore." And just like that, within little over a year, the entire Smith family was dead, wiped out by the tragic chain of events set into motion that one fateful night Max had lost control of his car. All four of their lives cut brutally short. Now it was Max's turn to face the final judgment for his sins in this life. As a non-believer, he did not expect any sort of afterlife. Yet to his immense shock, he found himself standing in a vast white space, more vivid and real than anything he had ever known on earth. A figure dressed in a long robe approached him, radiating overwhelming grace, wisdom, and peace. "Maxwell Smith," spoke the figure in a tone like rolling thunder, yet also as soft as a whisper on the breeze. "Much tragedy has befallen your family through no fault of their own. They stand with me now in paradise, their suffering at an end. But there is still much for you to understand before your journey is complete." Max's mind reeled, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was this God, an angel, a dream? He stammered, "Who are you? What is this place? Where is my family? I don't understand any of this." The bearded man gave a small smile. "All questions will be answered in time, my friend. But first you must walk the next path I have laid out for you. It will not be easy, but stay true to your heart and have faith that I am with you every step of the way. When you have learned all you need to learn, we will be reunited with your loved ones in paradise." Before Max could protest further, a bright glow surrounded him. He shut his eyes against the light, and when he opened them again, he found himself standing in a darkened alleyway amidst pouring rain. But it wasn't just any alleyway. He immediately recognized the familiar landscape of downtown Boston. Max was stunned to find himself apparently reincarnated as a flesh and blood human again. But how could this be possible? More incredibly, he slowly realized it was the very same day he had originally died in the car accident almost 2 years ago, based on the date on a newspaper lying in the gutter. He had been given a second chance at life to right the wrongs of the past. But with no money, ID, or home to return to, Max knew he was in for the fight of his afterlife. Where to even begin was a daunting thought. Just then, a shadowy figure emerged from the gloom and walked towards him. Max recoiled, uncertain of this stranger's intentions. But the man called out in a comforting voice, "Do not be afraid, friend. I have been watching over you. Come, let me help you start down your new path." Though wary, Max sensed this person truly meant him no harm. He decided to place his trust in the mysterious helper, as per the instructions of the bearded man before. And so began Max's extraordinary new journey, guided by unlikely angels sent from above every step of the way. The stranger's name was David, and he worked as a chef at a nearby homeless shelter. He took pity on the bedraggled and confused Max, sheltering him for the night and providing a warm meal. Over dinner, Max told David about the strange turn of events that had led to him losing everything. While David thought the story far-fetched, he did not dismiss Max's obvious distress. "You may stay here as long as you need," said David kindly. "The mind can play tricks in times of grief. For now, all that matters is you have a roof and full belly. The rest will work itself out in time." Max was grateful for the shelter manager's understanding. Over the next few weeks, he volunteered around the kitchen and common areas, slowly regaining his strength, both physical and mental. David's gentle guidance and the others' acceptance started mending his hardened heart. Most nights, Max tossed and turned, replaying the tragic chain of events over in his head. If only he had survived that car accident, he would do anything to spare his loved ones such torment. These thoughts often left him in tears, overwhelmed by the cruel hand of fate. One evening, as they closed up the shelter together, David sensed Max's turmoil. "My friend, do not dwell in the past which you cannot change. Look instead to the future within your power to shape. Each small act of kindness, no matter how simple, can ripple out to touch many lives." Max knew the chef spoke wisdom. It was then he resolved to dedicate his second chance at life to helping others in honor of his fallen family, as best he could given his situation. An opportunity soon arose to start down that path. The shelter was short-staffed, and David offered Max a paid job helping with meals and cleaning. It was humble work, but gave purpose, along with a small wage. Before long, Max had saved enough to rent a tiny apartment in the city. Though alone, he felt deeply grateful just to have walls and roof once more. At night, he would pray to the presence that had delivered him here. Not out of belief, but hopes this was all part of some greater plan he did not yet see. With David's encouragement, Max enrolled in night classes to earn his GED. Studying came easier than anticipated, likely due to his education from his previous life. It gave him solace that all was not lost. His mind still retained knowledge that could help others one day. Just when things seemed to be looking up, tragedy struck yet again. A terrible flu outbreak hit the homeless community that winter, overwhelming the shelter. Tragically, David fell ill assisting the infected and did not recover and died from complications. Max was devastated to lose his dear friend and mentor who had given him purpose in this new life. In his grief, he reached out to the heavens once more. "Why? Why must those who do good constantly suffer? What lesson am I supposed to learn? He cried out in anguish. That night, as Max wept himself to an exhausted slumber, he dreamed of David smiling down at him from a brilliant light. Do not lose hope, my son. Carry on the work we began, heal minds as well as bodies. Your gifts can uplift many if you have courage to share them. The next morning, Max awoke with a renewed sense of mission. He knew in his heart what he was meant to do. With his GED completed, he applied to the local community college's nursing program using his savings. To his great joy, Max was accepted for the upcoming semester. His intensive studies took all of Max's focus and then some. Balancing classes, clinicals, and shifts at the shelter kept him busier than ever before, but the work felt rewarding, helping fill the void in his soul left by past losses. Time flew by, and within 4 rigorous years, Max graduated at the top of his class with an associate's degree in nursing. The dean was so impressed by his dedication and grades that he helped Max secure a sponsor for bachelor's school as well. It was then that Max's true healing began. As a registered nurse, he found purpose working in underserved communities and at free clinics around the city. His patients loved the gentle and competent care he provided with great empathy. Often, Max stayed late helping folks who fell through the cracks of the system. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye, though each day was full. Along the way, Max reconnected with his Christian faith through quiet reflection on all that had brought him to this point. He no longer saw religion and science as opposed, but rather different paths converging on the same ultimate truth. By this time, Max had saved enough to fulfill his dream of opening a low-cost health center in the inner city. Friends from his various roles all lent a hand to bring the project to life. On opening day, the small clinic was bursting at the seams with grateful patients. Gratitude was all Max felt, too. As he looked around at the staff dedicated to service just as he was, a profound sense of completion swept over him. All the suffering, all the loss, it had forged him into an instrument to ease suffering in others. How truly blessed he was to walk this path. That evening, as the last patient was seen, Max stepped outside to find the bearded stranger from his awakening waiting with a smile. Well done, my child. Through trial and triumph alike, you embraced compassion as your guiding star. Now come, they await. It is time to join your loved ones in the light once more. Max smiled back through happy tears at peace. Thank you for this life and all its lessons. I am ready. Hand in hand, they walked together into the sunset, into a peace that surpasses all understanding, the end.